Welcome to the latest edition of Beyond the Arc. I'm John Gonzalez alongside our NBA insider, Bill Ryder. And Bill, we like to do a little soccer crossover here at Beyond the Arc. Did you see
Yeah, we
that
do.
Jason Kidd has joined the Everton ownership group?
No, but doesn't that mean that the Everton manager is going to get sacked in the next 4 months? Isn't that how that's? Isn't that the joke? Is that how I complete the joke?
That's probably right. I was thinking that you and I maybe we need to pool our resources and get in on an ownership group. So maybe like a lower level, like League Two team, National League team,
Okay.
like a Wrexham feel good story.
All right. You bring the resources. I don't have those, but I'll bring the
Okay.
enthusiasm, and together we
All
can
right.
do it.
Well, we'll outsource all of this to the Beyond the Arc listeners if they'd like to join our consortium. Maybe we could pool our resources and get that together. Also, one more thing before we get onto the show proper. Right before we went live, John Horst. I saw so there's been a whole bunch of things that have happened with general
Interesting.
managers recently, and I got a push alert, and I saw John Horst, Bill, and I said, "Oh, the Bucks have fired John Horst because it happened with David Griffin, it happened with
Bingo.
Landry Shields, it happened with Calvin Booth." Turned out, no, they've extended John Horst.
Look, congratulations. You took a championship level roster and you turned it into something that's not very sustainable, and you got rewarded for it. I shouldn't. I actually like John Horst. It's a very,
Yeah.
and I haven't had time because it just happened to call people and figure out, other than just to get a confirmation from somebody in Milwaukee. John, there's a couple things going on, and one of them that occurred to me, and again, it's all speculative, but there was certainly a bit of a power struggle between Horst and Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers obviously came in a season and a half ago, replaced Adrian Griffin. I'll be very curious what this means for the future of Doc, if it means anything, or at least the decision making in the front office, and what it means for the future of Giannis Antetokounmpo, where there's been this sort of rising fervor and belief that there's the possibility that he could ask out this summer, ask to be sent somewhere
Yeah,
else.
we have been bracing for a while now for what looks like it could be a very difficult offseason for the Bucks, especially if they crash out of the first round for the third straight season. So kudos to John Horst for getting a little job security, because going into this offseason, waiting on an extension or, a new contract, and then all these things swirling around and all this uncertainty could have been a really bad summer for him. And now he just, can sit around and try to move the pieces around the board. Still going to be difficult for the Bucks, though. All right, later in the show, the annual athletic players poll is out. We're going to go through that, and we're going to look ahead to some big game threes tonight. Knicks, Pistons, Nuggets, Clippers. Both of those should be juicy. Those series are tied at 1-1. But first, Bill, let's do a little Warriors and Rockets. Man, when you say things could not have gone worse for the Golden State Warriors last night, that is from soup to nuts. It was just a bad night for them. The Rockets ended up winning this game by 15 points, Bill. They let it wire to wire. The series is now tied at 1-1. And Jimmy Butler lasted all of 8 minutes. He went for a rebound on an Amin Thompson shot, and Amin kind of undercut him. And it wasn't a dirty play, just one of those things that
You
happens in
you
basketball.
thought it wasn't dirty? I got to jump in. I thought it was dirty. So I'll agree to disagree. I watched it 50 times. It looked dirty to me.
Well, I mean, I'm going off of what the Warriors said afterwards, where their reaction
Yeah.
was it wasn't dirty. These things happen in basketball.
I
And he was
saw
going
it.
for. Yeah, okay.
I don't
All right,
know,
well,
man.
whatever your interpretation of it was, the outcome is the same, which is that Jimmy Butler hit the floor pretty hard, landed on his tailbone, went into the back immediately, and was ruled out. Did not return with a pelvis contusion. And Bill, after that, it all of a sudden, like, I'm watching this game, and it's not like the Rockets, Jalen Green aside, the Rockets played pretty well. But the Warriors, I thought, just looked like the Warriors pre-Jimmy Butler, where like the offense was slow. They had to throw Kuminga out there. Steve Kerr was casting about he put 12 different guys onto the floor. They looked like the Warriors pre-Jimmy, which was not a good version.
I mean, you're right. He's the secret sauce. He's that magical ingredient. And we've discussed this a lot, but for people watching, when Jimmy Butler came into the mix, the defense went from top 10 to top 3. That's significant. But more importantly, the offense went from very mediocre to at times poor to really, really good. I think seventh over the course of the time since Butler got into the starting five, got into the rotation a couple days after the trade deadline. And John, my interpretation of this totally hinges on how significant that game was on Jimmy Butler. If the MRI comes back clean, to me, the Rockets are clearly going down to the Warriors. The Warriors are clearly a better team. I mean, that was a brutal performance from Golden State, and there were times where it felt like maybe they were going to push it and make a game of it. And if Jimmy Butler is going to miss time, at least from my vantage point, if he misses a couple games, or more in the series, it flips it to huge advantage Houston. You're right. As Jimmy Butler goes, so goes this Golden State team.
Yeah, even with the loss last night, Bill, Warriors are 23-8 when Jimmy plays. Again, he only played 8 minutes, but that does count. Now, the good thing here, if you're the Warriors, is that they have this. The way the series has worked is that it's been spaced out pretty significantly. So they have another 2 days. Game 3 isn't until Saturday, so it'll give Jimmy a little time to convalesce. From the Rockets' perspective, Bill, 4 of the 5 starters were in double figures last night. Low turnovers. Jalen Green had a night. Jalen Green, one of the streakiest players in the NBA. Awesome. When he's cooking, he's fantastic. He was fantastic last night. He had 38 points. 13 of 25 from the floor. Billy had 8 threes. He was really feeling himself. And then also Alperen Şengün, who may or may not make All-NBA, but he was an All-Star. He had a double-double, 7 assists as well, and 2 steals. This is as good, I think, as you could hope for from the Rockets. Yes, no Jimmy Butler, but like a little bit of momentum, or at least like keeping the Warriors from winning the first 2 games on their floor as the series shifts to San Fran.
Great game, amazing performance by the Rockets. We know all the things that they consistently do well. They're incredible defensively. They're a great rebounding team. They are a menace in terms of offensive rebounding. And I think it was like, John, I think it was like 78 seconds into the game as the second or third possession for the Rockets. Green hit a 3. And I just was sitting in the green room in Stamford, Connecticut for CBS Sports HQ. And you just got the sense, because he's one of the streakiest players in the league. Oh, he's going to be locked in this game. The thing about Houston is I don't think it cracks the code, whether it's this series or it's the next series that they beat the Warriors, on their issue is he's not reliable. No. Şengün isn't like a reliable scorer, but someone going and getting buckets, creating their own space, being the guy, especially in crunch time, which really there wasn't a crunch time last night. It could be Jalen Green, maybe, but he could also go 4 or 20. And so it's a reminder of, on the nights where the offense is hitting, which means where one of those young guys, Green in particular, steps up and is in rhythm and is feeling it, the Rockets are as good literally as anybody in the NBA. The problem for the Rockets is they don't do that every night, or even close to every night.
Yeah, that's been the issue for them this entire season that we've been talking about, where we were wondering if they're going to make a move at the deadline. They decided not to. And then, if KD becomes available, there's been a lot of rumblings that, hey, they probably might not be, or maybe they're less interested in KD than people might otherwise think, because, in terms of his age, him being 37 and the core of this group being younger, they might be looking for somebody closer to their age group. Do you think that Jalen Green ever could be that guy? Because he does have flashes. It's just that you can't. The reliability component that you're talking about is the whole thing, right? I mean, Fred VanVleet is a veteran. He falls into the same category where some nights you're like, man, Fred's got it cooking. He's the guy tonight. Right. And then you go back to him on the next night and you're like, not tonight for Fred.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's the catch-22 of the Rockets. Yes, I think Jalen Green can, and I'll go further, will become a more reliable guy that's at that, maybe not the level we saw last night, but yes, he can be someone that you can turn to and say, this is a guy we can go get buckets from. I think the same will be true for Amen Thompson. The sort of, I guess, mixed blessing or great problem the Rockets have is they weren't supposed to be this good. They weren't supposed to be a 2 seed in a crowded Western Conference having legitimate conversations about a conference finals. So I don't know that they want to wait 2 or 3 years. I mean, these are young basketball players, right, who aren't even doing this level of consistency in the regular season. And I know it's a leap to also be able to do it in the playoffs. And you brought up Kevin Durant. Last night was the first night where, I mean, obviously Kevin Durant is an amazing player, and whatever team needs help, you want to go get him. But it just hit me watching Jalen Green thinking, man, if you had Kevin Durant, who would do this all the nights where Jalen Green doesn't do it, the Rockets go from being a really interesting young team that's gonna build something to, they might be Thunder level, they might be Celtics level. So yes, I think Green will get there. I'm just curious whether Houston wants to wait for that, or whether it's next season they want someone to come in and bridge that gap for a while.
At least for this series, I mean, not having Jimmy around, this is an opportunity for them, right? I mean, we'll see what happens with Jimmy Butler. Right. And whether or not he comes back. From the Warriors' perspective, Bill, this has forced Johnathan Kuminga back into service. He was a DNP-CD in the 3 games prior to that. Steve Kerr looked around and said, I don't like the fit with Kuminga and Jimmy Butler and Draymond because there's not enough spacing and not enough shooting on the floor with Steph Curry. So Kuminga got mothballed. Okay, Jimmy Butler goes out last night. All of a sudden, you need a new somebody to fill the Jimmy Butler minutes. Welcome back, Johnathan Kuminga. He's got 20. He played 26 minutes, had 11 points. There was obviously some rust there. I'm not as high on Johnathan Kuminga as you are. If Jimmy Butler misses game 3, Steve Kerr is going to have to go back to the Johnathan Kuminga well. What do you think they can get out of him?
Yeah, but by the way, I don't know you need that much out of him. I mean, Brandon Bajemski had food poisoning and played 14 minutes and looked like he was struggling through those minutes. Draymond Green was garbage. I mean, he'll have good games, but he wasn't good last night. And obviously Steph was. I mean, that was. See, I say this more glass half full for the Warriors than I do for the Rockets, because I thought Golden State played very poorly. Obviously, Kuminga is going to have massive amounts of rust. There is this sort of, and I know they were down when Jimmy got taken out on accident or otherwise, but they were down in game one, if I remember right, when they came back and won. You go back to Golden State, I would imagine Draymond's going to have a better game. I would imagine Kuminga's going to be accustomed to playing. I would imagine whatever Pajemski was eating, he's never going to eat again, so he's going to be able to. So that was like a lot of issues coming together at once. So you're right. I'm higher on Kuminga than you are. He's not a superstar, but I think he can fill that void. He can give some physicality. He can give some athleticism. None of it matters for me if Jimmy Butler's out. Like, if he's a stopgap, and if Butler's coming back in game 3 even or 4 or whatever it is, I like whatever happens in the game 2, say. I like the Warriors in the series. If Jimmy Butler's not coming back in time, you noted it. It's true. The Warriors are the team they were before February 6th, and I don't think that team is beating the Rockets. So whatever you get out of Kuminga, I don't think it's significant. And I don't know that it even matters, because for me, at least, it is all about whether Jimmy Butler is back or not back.
Yeah, it really does come down to what kind of Jimmy do you have, if you have any Jimmy at all. And also, Brandon Pajemski, gas station sushi, never a good idea. I don't know that that's what he ate, but try to refrain from that before game 3. You'll do yourself and the team some good. All right, quick break. And then on the other side, we're going to do the annual Athletic Anonymous Players Poll. We've got most underrated, most overrated, who's the next face of the league, all kinds of good stuff from that. We'll do that next. This is Beyond the Arc on CBS Sports Network. All right, welcome back to Beyond the Arc. Just a reminder, we're also a podcast. You can get us wherever you find your favorite shows. Please download, subscribe, and leave a review. All right, Bill, the annual Athletic Anonymous Players Poll always gets some reaction from around the league. We like to discuss it. We're going to start with one of the more infamous questions that they ask, which is most overrated player. I believe Rudy Gobert won last year. This year, they got 90 respondents on this from their poll. Different, not everybody responds to every question. This is one of the ones that tends to have a lower response rate because it's a little controversial and some guys don't like to criticize other people. But 90 people were like, I'm in on this. So number one, most overrated player this year was Tyrese Halliburton, followed by Rudy Gobert, always a crowd favorite for this question. Trae Young, Jimmy Butler, tied for 5, Bill. Bradley Beal, Draymond Green, John Morant, Julius Randle. And then Joel Embiid got some votes there, which I thought was interesting.
Embiid, maybe belongs on there. Whoever voted for Giannis should lose their spot on this poll. I mean, look, I love the folks at The Athletic, and they do a great job, but they know who these folks are, at least some of the reporters do. That person has to be banned from having any impact on any coverage involving the NBA for at least 5 years. Although the top of the list is interesting, John. And some of this, right, you know how human nature works. Some of this is people voting for guys they think are overrated, but there's a percentage here that's just a popularity contest. If you hate someone and as a colleague or a competitor, I mean, do people really think Draymond's underrated, or they just loathe him with every fiber of their being, some of those voters, right? I think there's some of that going on too.
Yeah, I think like some of your contemporaries, if you get into a scrap with Draymond, you're like, I'm giving Draymond an overrated vote because I don't like playing against him. But yeah, somebody voted for Giannis. That's ridiculous. Somebody voted for Drew Holiday, who was just the consummate, like, do everything glue guy for the last 15 years and doesn't hurt you anywhere. That I thought was like, who thinks Drew Holiday is overrated?
Maybe John Horst. Maybe that was John Horst. I guess it's players. Maybe John Horst had one of his guys. Please, if you could play.
John Horst had a surrogate vote for him on that one. That's very funny. And then also somebody voted for LeBron, arguably the greatest player of all time. I think it's pretty ridiculous. Yeah. But Tyrese Halliburton and Rudy Gobert and Trae Young finishing 1, 2, and 3. This does not surprise me. Tyrese Halliburton, as we've seen in the series with the Bucks, he gets under people's skin. I suspect maybe Dame Lillard was one of those votes. And then Rudy Gobert, everybody loves to hate on that guy forever, as is the same case with Trae Young.
I think the Tyrese Halliburton thing is really interesting. And some of this is because, John, you and I going through my ballot for these awards, at the end, I put him on my All NBA third team. And if I remember right, he was the last guy on. But right, for me, this past year, because that's now positionless, top 15 player. But he's had an interesting couple of seasons because last season he was a top 5 player in the league up to and including that Pacers run to the in-season tournament they lost to the Lakers. Then he got injured in December, January, and really had a very poor season second half of last year, even though they made that run to the conference finals. Started poorly this year, and if you sort of like paid attention to the Pacers early on, they weren't great. He wasn't great, but they've been much better, really going back the last 30 or 40 games, and so is he. And so I wonder how much of this is some of these guys, some of these competitors, seeing the version of him they want to see, because he is, I don't know if he's streaky, but he has these sort of runs of being really good and really bad and really good and really bad. He's an interesting player.
He's been fantastic lately. Rudy Gobert also just like a constant entrant into this category. I mean, he's won DPOY, 4 times? He's just constantly on this list. At some point, he should be grandfathered out of this, Bill. Everybody knows that he's disliked. Do you think Rudy understands how disliked he is?
Oh, yeah. I think people that are but maybe with the way that maybe your idea, like, how I hate this, but they've named all the awards, the actual NBA awards, after somebody, or it's like, all these awards have names now, and you win the Michael Jordan. Is he the clutch? I don't even know. How about the annual Athletic Rudy Gobert Overrated Player Award? So he's not actually on the list, but it's named after him, right? He gets to sort of that tradition carries on.
Poor Rudy. Let's do most underrated. I know he's a very good player. People love to hate on him. All right. Also on this list, most underrated player. You only got 90 votes for overrated. Got 136 votes for underrated player. Number 1 on this list was Cade Cunningham, Bill, followed by Derek White, Norm Powell, Austin Reeves, and then Drew Holiday, who some bonehead gave a vote for overrated, makes the underrated player list, rightly so, alongside Jaren Jackson Jr. for the top 5. But some really good ones on this list.
Yeah, I find the Drew Holiday one interesting because, John, before on CBS Sports HQ, when I was doing a different show back in the day, we would have a lot of NBA players on. And every single NBA guest we had, I would ask who they thought the most underrated player was in the NBA. And they could not say themselves, and they could not say a teammate. And I can't remember the exact math on it, but it's something like 80% of the answers of guys spread across the league, like Steph Curry was on the show, and Giannis was on the show, and all these other people, 80% of the answers were Drew Holiday. And these were non-teammates, and obviously it wasn't Drew Holiday. And so I think that guy has been one of the most underrated players in the game for a long time. And maybe it went away a little bit when Milwaukee won that championship, and I think it went away a lot last year and hit his impact. But you look at the list that we put up, and Cade Cunningham's a star player. So maybe a lot of those guys are the kind of guys you kind of need and want to win a championship. I mean, underrated is great if you're a front office because clearly, I don't know why I'm picking on poor John Horst, the GM in Milwaukee. He got his extension. John Horst underrated Drew Holiday, right? When he shipped him out for Damian Lillard. And so that list I find really interesting because those are the kind of players that if you're a front office, if you can identify them in a way your colleagues cannot, those can be difference makers.
Yeah, I had a conversation with Andre Iguodala after he had left the Sixers when he was with the Warriors during that run. And we were talking about Drew Holiday and just like how Drew Holiday had really leveled up since they had played together with the Sixers. And I always remember what he said. He said, Drew Holiday is your favorite NBA player's favorite NBA player. And that always stuck with me. That's because great. For all of the things that you just, I mean, like he just doesn't hurt you anywhere. He's just so solid. And he's also a good dude, easy to talk to, good teammate, good professional with the media, loves the fans and the crowd and the community and that whole thing. So he deserves to be on the underrated player list. Cade Cunningham stepping forward. He's going to make all NBA. That makes sense to me. And Derek White, I think, is criminally underrated and constantly underrated. Like just for him to be, last year he made all defense. We'll see if he does this year. I think he might be on the outside looking in, but for a guy just like Drew Holiday, who can really guard 1 through 5 in a pinch, 1 through 4 consistently, but if you got to throw him on a center, you can. That guy just like, he's been fantastic for the Celtics.
He's been amazing. How is Cade Cunningham topping this list? I'm going back to most improved player gripes here. He was underrated. Didn't we all recognize last year that he had made, a nice step forward, and then this year he's made a giant leap forward? How is the majority of the respondents underrating Cade Cunningham? Do they not follow basketball? I mean, it is a gripe.
That's a fair point.
I don't understand.
I think it's kind of like, oh, you don't even realize that he's that great. You think he's good, but he's like,
Okay.
he's like close
All
to
right.
first team all NBA or something like that. Whereas, but you're right, because if you're on a list with guys who are underrated, like say you have a whole host of Oklahoma City Thunder players on this list that maybe the casual basketball fan in America is just getting clued into now in
Yeah.
the playoffs, of Lou Dort and Kason Wallace and Jalen Williams and Aaron Wiggins. Like that's like the entirety of the Oklahoma City team. Like Cade Cunningham probably shouldn't be on that list. You're right.
Did Amen Thompson make that list? Because that's a guy who I'm not sure people realize, because a lot of what he does when he's not having a huge offensive night are sort of non-box score impacts. I mean, he's like the soccer player. He's like the Pedri of the midfield, where like even if he's not on the box score, he makes a huge. See, I got my Barcelona thing in there.
Nicely done.
Champions
I like
League,
how you
Paramount
slipped that in.
Plus. Subscribe and watch.
Yes, go and check all of that out. Glasso Network. Amen Thompson did make the list, and I think that that's a really good point.
Yeah.
That he had a year where he really stepped forward and like made everybody who watches basketball consistently like freak out about him. We all like him, but yes, if you're maybe not watching all the Rockets games, or you wait for the playoffs NBA type of fan, then yeah, and you look at the box score and you're like, oh, he didn't score a ton of points. It's hard to measure his impact playing defense when he's shutting down Steph Curry or rebounding, or like how quickly he goes from 0 to 100 miles an hour running end to end in transition, where he's just like a freak of nature. Also on this list, Bill, other guys who fit that: Dyson Daniels, who's a defensive player of the year
Good
candidate,
one.
who's going to make first team all defense, and Tumani Kamara, who could make all defense as well, who's been a revelation for the Blazers. Those are guys around the margins where you go, yeah, like they are a little like underrated because they're kind of under the radar.
Yeah, and like I like that some of these guys are young players who are on the upswing, because many of the guys on this list are not going to be underrated for much longer because they're still ascending to the level that they're going to get to in the league.
Yeah. We've also got some more here from the Athletic annual anonymous players poll. Let's take a quick break. And then on the other side, the one that I was excited about, it's not going to surprise you who tops this list, but some of the other names after that on who's going to be the face of the league in 5 years are super interesting, as well as teams that got voted best organization and teams that got left off that list. We'll do that next. Don't go anywhere. This is Beyond the Arc on CBS Sports Network. Welcome back to Beyond the Arc. John and Bill running through the Athletics annual anonymous player poll. And Bill, one of the questions was face of the league in 5 years. They got 138 respondents on this. No surprise to anybody. Wemby ran away with the vote with 54%. The other players after him I thought were interesting, because this is something you and I have talked about. Non-Wemby division, who could potentially be one of the faces of the league. Respondents were, or people that got votes were, Anthony Edwards, SGA. And then it was interesting because Jason Tatum finished 4 and Luka finished 5. And on the face of that, you'd think, well, why wouldn't you have Luka ahead of Jason Tatum? But also, this is the face of the league question in 5 years, Bill. Jason Tatum is 27 years old. Luka's 26. What are we doing?
I mean, Luka, I could almost see, right? I mean, LeBron's 40.
Yeah, fair.
Would you agree that LeBron
Fair.
is still the face of the league? I think LeBron and Steph are the faces of the league. I love the Cade Cunningham vote. I mean, John Morant. I mean, that is Adam Silver's absolute worst nightmare. Of every name that's on here that's not Wembanyama.
Yeah.
I mean, John Morant as the face of the league would be fun. I think it's Anthony Edwards. And I think that the Steph LeBron era has shown us, kind of like Magic Bird, if you can have two guys that are the face of the league that sort of compete for championships and define the league, it's better. You want 2 or 3, because when LeBron and Steph play games that are meaningful, people watch. The ratings are astronomical when they played each other over the years. Of course, in the finals, they're incredible. And so an Anthony Edwards, Victor Wembanyama sort of face of the league duo, if Ant can keep getting to that level, I think he will. And if Wembanyama can be and stay healthy, sign me up. I'm very optimistic on the future of the NBA if that's what we're looking at.
Non-Wemby division, if you're talking about face of the league, part of it is there's like a charisma to it, right? There's a personality to it. It's not just that you're a superstar talent. You have to be kind of good on a mic, be a little engaging, get people to put their eyeballs on you, not just on a basketball court, but off. And SGA is an otherworldly player and might just be MVP. He's not a great interview. He's a little boring. He's like definitely very, and this actually probably works out to his benefit when he's on the basketball court. He's very even keeled. He doesn't get riled up. Anthony Edwards has there's an energy to him, not always for the better. Sometimes he gets a little worked up for the worse, but there's a personality there where, like, you're just like, there's a spotlight on that kid. He's a star. Similarly, for reasons that, like, I like Cade Cunningham as a player, and I think he might win an MVP before Anthony Edwards. If you're going to ask me who wins an MVP, I don't know that either of them will, but I might take Cade over Anthony Edwards in the MVP conversation. I'll take Anthony Edwards all day long on the personality question.
That is a really interesting thought experiment. You think, I mean, I'm not mad at you. I've never thought of it that way. Cade over. So the other thing I'll add into the mix, and you're 100% right, that charisma, that X factor, that ability, the Q rating is significant. I think so is the ability to have signature moments and to have big shots and big fourth quarters. So that's both performance under pressure and just being on a basketball team that matters. If Steph Curry were Steph Curry and they never made it out of the second round or never won an NBA championship, he's not Steph Curry, right? You have to, on that list, it has to be a player that you believe will be on a team that's going to win championships, and that will be the player that is the reason that they win championships and has those signature moments and games and moves and shots that define that. And in that respect, I'm 100% in on Anthony Edwards. It's a new ownership group. We will see whether or not they build the right structure around him, but they have an incredible GM and front office. And I know it's early. I mean, last year was the first time that Anthony Edwards played meaningful postseason basketball. But in that first year, where there really was an opportunity of expectations, they made a conference finals. And I know they're still playing the Lakers, and we'll see what happens. I still like Minnesota on that list. So Wembanyama, you're right aside, I think Ant has checked off every box. He's got the charisma box you're talking about. He's young. He's going to be on a successful team, I think, for a long time. And if you ask me, if you threw that same list up and said outside of Wemby, or maybe including Wemby, who do you trust in a tie game, in an elimination game in the conference finals the most over the next 5 or 6 or 7 years? With all respect to Jason Tatum and everyone else on that list, I think for me the answer is Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, I like the Minnesota organization too, with one caveat that Tim Connolly, the architect of both that team and the Denver Nuggets team that ended up winning the championship, he's got an opt-out clause this offseason, so we'll see if he sticks around.
If he stays.
People expect him to, but just, keep an eye on that. All right, let's rattle through some more of these, Bill. Best and worst organizations in the NBA. Best organization voted was the Golden State Warriors, followed by Oklahoma City, the Boston Celtics. Interesting on here, Bill. Number 4 was the LA Clippers, ahead of the Heat and the Lakers. The Clippers, the second team in LA, came ahead of the Heat and the Lakers. I thought that was something to note. Golden State, though, finishing first does not surprise me at all.
Let me go back to the Clippers really quickly, because when I'm wearing the NBA insider hat and I'm talking to people around the NBA, just like every other business, John, people like to talk about, what their specialty is, in this case, basketball. They also like to talk about their colleagues in disparaging ways and to be jealous on a regular basis, even general managers or former general managers who have made very nice livings. And there is a lot of jealousy out there directed toward the front office with the Clippers, and the belief, and I'm not espousing this, I'm just telling you, there's a lot of people who will tell you they're not that well run. It's just they have a great owner. They're not that incredible in what they put together. It's just that Steve Ballmer is very, very patient, has built this cathedral of basketball. The key, I think, to that list, or those teams that are on the top of the list, is the ownership situation, right? I mean, sure. What people covet is ownership stability that doesn't get in the way, that lets people do their jobs. And so I think the Clippers belong on there, because in my conversations, I can't tell you how many general managers and former general managers very much wish that they worked for Steve Ballmer.
Two things about this that I wanted to know for best organization. You're talking about how the ownership stability really matters. And that's why, in those top 5, top 6 fell in the order that they did. Also receiving votes, Bill, I thought curiously, the Mavs and the Suns, two teams that have hardly covered themselves in glory this season, ended up on the best organization list. I started laughing. I'm like, really? I wonder how those fan bases think about that. But also significant, Bill, as we transition to worst organization, no votes received in the best organization list for the Philadelphia 76ers and the New York Knicks.
Oh,
Did
your
not get a
team.
single vote for best organization, which LOL, which brings us to the worst organization. 113 votes cast in this bill. Charlotte Hornets number one with a bullet, followed by the Wizards, the Pelicans, the Kings. Those are bad teams to be lumped with. Oh, and here you go. The Philadelphia 76ers at number 5, the Dallas Mavericks at number 6, and then the Bulls and the Knicks tied at number 7, Bill. No surprise, top 4. But if you're the Sixers, that is not a group that you want to be with.
By the way, again, if you made a ranking of the worst owners in the NBA, just the worst ownership situations, that's basically the list. I don't know. I mean, you're the expert on the Sixers. I will defer to you on Josh Harris. I mean, he's obviously done an amazing job with the Commanders, and I know that's not the Sixers. I know it's a different, but I mean, he obviously is capable of being a successful owner. But is he not well liked? And what's the vibe in Philly on him?
He's not well liked for a number of reasons, but I would describe him personally. I've covered him. I've talked to him. I've interviewed him. I've watched his career. The Sixers were the first team that he bought, and then he expanded his business empire, Bill, his sports business empire. So now he's got the Devils, he's got the Commanders, and he's got Crystal Palace in the Premier League. And all of those teams are sort of just like middle of the pack. They make money for the owner. They're not really challenging for championships.
The Commanders are good.
They're steady. Like, he's just a really savvy. I mean, he's a billionaire, right? And he kept adding to his sports team portfolio. And none of these teams, like, Crystal Palace is a middle table team in the Premier League. The Sixers, same deal. They haven't gotten out of the second round since Allen Iverson in 2001. The Commanders, they made the playoffs, they get bounced out. I think Josh Harris is cool with that. I think he's like, I've got a bunch of teams that are going to be profitable for me, and if they win a championship and I luck into something, that's fine.
I think the Commanders are on the uptick, and I think maybe I would respectfully say that I think they're headed in a great direction, and maybe the Sixers can cling to that for a little bit of Sixers fans for a little hope. I don't know. I'm trying. For you.
Well, they're trying to build the building too, so we'll see if that juices their fortunes a little bit too. But yeah, so we mentioned the Mavericks getting a vote for best organization, Bill, and the Knicks not getting a vote. So here they pop up on this list at 6 and 7, and the Bulls, who forever and a day, yes, they were more fun towards the end of the regular season, but they have been, I think, curiously run, at least in the front office over the last few years. So it doesn't surprise me that the Mavs, the Bulls, and the Knicks popped up here.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I wonder. I'm shocked that the Suns and the Mavs did not run away. I can't believe they got votes. Again, whoever voted for those organizations on the best organizations list should be banned by The Athletic. They know who their anonymous sources are. You should not be allowed on there, because I think even though Charlotte hasn't won those teams have had a pretty long sort of consistent streak of awfulness. What Dallas just did is one of the most impressive self-harm, tear down, turning something great into something awful moves in the history of sports. They are the worst organization in the NBA, and they should be much, much higher on that list.
Much higher on the list. The list continues. We're going to take a quick break, and then we've got a couple more, including best coach in the league, worst coach in the league. And then while we're on the subject of coaches, we're going to check in on that Magic Celtics series, because Joe Mazzulla, we've got a new entrant, Bill, into the Joe Mazzulla. Wait, what did he say? Hall of Fame? That's going to come up next on the other side. You're going to want to hear it. It's pretty great. This is Beyond the Arc on CBS Sports Network. All right, welcome back to Beyond the Arc. A reminder, you can find us on YouTube at Beyond the Arc CBS. Please hit the like button, leave a comment, subscribe, that little bell symbol. Click on that. You'll get notified when we go live. We're going to have a bunch of live shows as the playoffs continue. All right, and continuing with the Athletics annual anonymous player poll, Bill, best coach in the league, 147 votes. Mark Dagnall takes it, followed by Kenny Atkinson and Eric Spoelstra. Joe Mazzulla, who we'll get to in a second, comes in 3. Ty Lue, also loved, at 4. And may I just speak up on behalf of number 5, despite the fact that our producer, Aaron, who's a big Warriors fan, is not a fan of Steve Kerr. I think Steve Kerr, much deserving to come in the top 5.
I was having this conversation with someone the other day, John, about how high the level of coaching is in the NBA right now. And you look at that list, I mean, Ime Udoka is pretty far down, and he is a remarkable coach. But you can make a case for everybody that's above him. I mean, there are 10, 11, 12 incredible coaches in the association right now. Speaking of Steve Kerr, I don't know if you saw this in the broadcast yesterday. They threw up a stat, winning percentage in playoff history, right? And Steve Kerr, number one, 70%. And I thought of producer Aaron and wherever he was, a small part of him dying in pain and misery. I'm glad Spoelstra's on this list, because before I looked at it, when I was going to click on it when it came out, my thought was, I hope Spoel is high. But a lot of times this becomes, understandably, who is the best coach having a good season. It's sort of like the MVP voting.
Sure.
Who's the best player that's also on the best team? And the Heat are not particularly good. We have seen that over the course of this series, and they obviously barely squeaked into the playoffs. I think Spoelstra was probably pound for pound the best coach in the NBA, and he's certainly the best coach with the worst roster. And so I was glad to see he got some love on it, because players know.
All of those guys are great coaches. Just to the Steve Kerr point about him having the highest winning percentage in playoff history, I also thought of producer Aaron, and I'm not going to look at my phone right now, but I guarantee you there's going to be a text in there with him saying that's only because he had Steph Curry and he's coaching Steph Curry. So I'll look at that in the break, and it might be, but still, Steve Kerr is a very good coach. He's a good manager of personalities. All right, worst coach in the league. This one only got 73 respondents. Couldn't vote for your own coach, which I think is also very funny. But Brian Keefe came in at number 1. Budenholzer, who just got axed, came in at 2. Your guy, Doc Rivers, at 3. Charles Lee at 4. And then Nick Nurse and Tom Thibodeau at 5. That was kind of surprising.
I don't think the Thibodeau thing's that crazy. I mean, this is a longer conversation, and I'm not even making this case. I'm just saying, John, that if the Knicks lose to the Pistons, which I think is very probable, or at least very possible, maybe that's a better way to put it, or they go down without much of a fight to the Celtics, which I think will happen, I think it's time to talk about Thibodeau and whether he's the guy and whether he has lived up to expectations. I mean, that's a really good Knicks roster. That's a okay basketball team that looks a little toothless at times so far. I mean, they should be down 2-0 in that series. And yes, what's the old Jerry Maguire line? The Athletic, you had me at Doc Rivers. Obviously, I'm not a Doc Rivers. But by the way, I'm not on an island here, right? This is there are a lot of people who think Doc Rivers stopped being an effective coach in about 2009, and he got frozen in time. I mean, think about how different the game is today versus 2008, which I think is when he won his last championship. This is the first season where the team that shot the fewest number of threes per game, the fewest number in the NBA, shot more than the 2015 Warriors team that sort of won that championship and redefined three-point shooting. So that was 10 years ago. Doc Rivers has the game. My point is the game has changed dramatically year to year, and Doc hasn't changed. I think it's very accurate by the players. Good job.
This is because people like you who criticize Doc Rivers for blowing all those 3-1 leads don't give him enough credit for the 3 games he won and just blame him all for the 4 games that he lost. You know, that's exactly what Doc said. He was very upset about that. All right, while we're on the subject of coaching, we should check in on the Magic in the Celtics series. The Celtics won last night's game, 109-100. No Jason Tatum. First playoff game he's missed, Bill. I mean, like we've talked about Jason Tatum and like he was streaky and whatever. That guy just being available is just such a skill. And that's something that a lot of teams would kill for. But they win this game. They go up 2-0. I don't know if you saw Kristaps Porzingis cut his head during the game. It looked like he was in a wrestling match where he got hit with a steel chair. There was blood in his hair, the whole bit, right? So Joe Mazzulla, who you and I love because he's such an interesting character, he decides to, talk about Kristaps Porzingis last night. And I thought he was going to be like, oh, yeah, Kristaps will be okay. We're monitoring the situation. That's not how he went. This is what he had to say after the game last night.
I like his overall just approach. I think he has an innate ability to take things very serious and at the same time, have great perspective. And, you see how I think he can control his environment really well with how he handles the crowd and how he handles the physicality of it. And he can maintain his poise. And he just has a great way about him. And I think that helps us. And I do. I love watching him. I like watching him bleed on the court. I think it's important. And then he comes back in and does his job.
What the hell, man?
What? When I saw that, I could not stop laughing. Because, all right, when I missed Kristaps bleeding in real time, and I thought, okay, this can't be what I think it is, because I saw the quote first, and then I watched the video of Kristaps bleeding afterwards, and putting them together in reverse order. I was like, what's he talking about here? What's he thinking? I mean, this is a guy, as we mentioned, forever. He talked about how he watched The Town like a million times, and now his new movie, he plans it to be The Accountant 2. That's his kind of thing. He does it. He sits with his back to the wall when he's at a restaurant because he doesn't want anybody sneaking up on him. He's just a very interesting guy, but like, I like watching him bleed on the court as an all-timer.
I did in reverse. I saw the injury live and then caught up later with his comment. And the best part of that clip is he's in cliche mode, and then his eyes light up and he kind of turns toward the camera and gets all excited about the blood. It's like, dude, don't look so happy. You're got, because Kristaps was bleed. I mean, it looks like a pretty serious injury.
Joe Mazzulla, never change. You've gone from, I'm not sure that he's very good, to I hope he's employed with a lifetime contract. He's my favorite coach in the NBA. He's absolutely remarkable. All right, one more break, and then on the other side, we'll talk about the game threes that we have tonight. Two really good ones. Knicks and Pistons, and Nuggets and Clippers. We'll do that on the other side. This is Beyond the Arc on CBS Sports Network. All right, welcome back to Beyond the Arc, wrapping up the show on a Thursday, looking ahead to tonight. Game threes, two big ones, Bill. You got Knicks and Pistons series tied at 1-1. Pistons snapped an NBA record 15-game playoff losing streak, their first win in the playoffs since 2008. They're hosting a game tonight. That building's going to be jamming. I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, I am too. And they're the better basketball team. It's only 2 games. A lot of things can change. You and I both covered the 3-1 debacle for the Warriors, an amazing comeback for the Cavs. So I understand that things shift and change, but this is a Pistons team that I think has been, to the eye test, clearly superior to the Pistons in every quarter of basketball, save the fourth quarter of game 1. And what I'm really just curious, because obviously that young team got nervous in game 1, John, and they gave that game away and let the Pistons go on that, or the Knicks go on that 21-0 run. And they almost did it in game 2, but they were able to hold on. If the Pistons sort of brush that off, if they, exhale and they just play basketball and they're relaxed, they're going to win the series. The way the Knicks win this series in part is the Pistons underperforming what they're capable of.
Yeah, I want to see how the Knicks respond to this one, because Jalen Brunson is just doing a lot of heavy lifting. His supporting cast has been sort of inconsistent and intermittent, where Karl Anthony Towns was good in game 1, terrible in game 2, had no points in the second half. Knicks get held to 94 points, kind of inexplicable given that their starting 5 is clearly better on paper than the Pistons. Cade Cunningham is fantastic, but the supporting cast that Jalen Brunson has should be better than what the Pistons have. But yes, you're right. The Pistons have been, I think, the better team in 7 out of the 8 quarters. So we'll see how Tom Thibodeau, who got some votes for worst coach in that annual athletic poll, how he responds in that one. And then the nightcap, Bill, Nuggets and Clippers. That series is also tied at 1-1. They have played 101 minutes so far with the overtime. The Clippers have an advantage of 1 point.
Yeah, which, by the way, speaks to the fact I have no idea who is the favorite in this series, who is the favorite even in this game, what to expect. I don't even know if they're calling. I don't even know if Michael Porter Jr. is going to play in the fourth quarter. I mean, there's a lot of good series, John. This is sort of snuck up as maybe the most interesting of all the first round playoff series so far.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, we've had a Kawhi game. We had a Joker game last game where it was a bad in air quotes, triple-double. MPJ, as you mentioned, is he going to play? Is he not? Because David Adelman's rotations have been incredible. And this series is so close. I was asked for HQ who I think is going to win against the spread. I'll take the Nuggets because they're getting points. It's just been that close, so we'll see what happens. That's going to do it for us today. We're going to be back at it on Friday, live on YouTube at 12 p.m. Eastern. You can find us at Beyond the Arc CBS. But for now, for our NBA insider, Bill Ryder, I'm John Gonzalez. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.